She walked into the garage unnoticed. No name tag, no title, no designer heels, just a worn folder and a request that made them laugh. What they didn't know? She once ruled the racetrack, and today she wasn't here for nostalgia. She was here to change everything. The moment they dismissed her, they started a story they'd never forget. If you feel drawn in, make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow we have a story that will leave you speechless. The air inside the garage felt cooler than it should have. Clean, controlled. The kind of place that smelled more like polish and printer ink than oil or sweat. Mila Leon stepped inside and paused just past the glass doors. Her steps were steady, but her fingers lightly brushed the brim of her old racing cap, an old habit when nerves stirred beneath her calm. She told herself it didn't matter, but part of her knew it always matters how they look at you. A row of carbon fiber prototypes lined the floor like sleeping creatures. Engineers in spotless uniforms murmured over tablets. Big names, bigger egos. Mila had built this place, but today she came in through the front, not as CEO, not as legend, just as a mother with a plan. She approached the desk. The young woman behind it didn't look up at first. When she did, her eyes flicked quickly from Mila's scuffed sneakers to her worn denim shirt. "Hi," the receptionist said, polite but flat. "Here for a delivery?" "No," Mila replied softly. "I'd like to commission a custom build." There was a beat, then a smile, tight and polished. "I see. For which program?" "It's a one-off. Formula frame, electric hybrid, a gift." The receptionist blinked once, then glanced around, as if waiting for a hidden camera crew to jump out. "You have an appointment?" "No. I'm sorry, we typically don't take walk-ins, especially for—" A pause. The girl gestured vaguely at Mila's folder of sketches. "That level of project." Mila didn't flinch. She placed the folder on the counter and opened it. Pages of hand-drawn specs, elegant and precise, slid out like blueprints of a forgotten language. "I've built 6 of these," she said. "Not for the showroom, for the track." At a nearby table, a young mechanic, maybe early 20s, looked up. His eyes lingered on the sketches. Something in them clicked. Recognition, curiosity, respect. The receptionist didn't notice. She was too busy measuring Mila with her eyes. "Ma'am, I'm sure you're passionate about cars, but these projects usually involve corporate teams. Maybe your son could try go-karts first." Mila's lips pressed into a thin line. Not angry, just tired. "I didn't say he'd drive it." "Oh, well, still." Another man approached. Dark blazer, slicked back hair, manager type. "Everything all right?" "She's asking about a Formula Custom," the receptionist offered, amused. He looked her over once, slowly, carefully. His voice dropped into condescension. "Ma'am, we don't do fantasy builds here." Mila reached into her pocket. She placed a key fob on the counter. Silver, scratched, the faint outline of a falcon still visible on the side. The young mechanic's eyes widened. "Wait, that's—" Mila looked up, her voice calm but cool. "Is your design floor open? Or do you only build for people wearing suits?" She hadn't worn her name today. Not on her jacket, not on her cap, not on the lanyard she sometimes carried at public events. Today she'd left it all at home, on purpose. Mila wanted to know how the place she built would treat someone without a name. Apparently not well. The key fob sat on the counter like it didn't belong. Scuffed, old, out of place. The receptionist looked at it with vague disinterest, then nudged it back toward Mila with her manicured fingertip. "I'm not sure what that is," she said. "But like I said, we don't normally do private customs, especially not for birthdays." Mila didn't pick up the key. She let it sit there, proof, quiet and steady, in a place too loud with assumption. Across the room, the young mechanic still watched, eyes flicking between the sketches on the desk and the falcon emblem on the fob. But he stayed where he was, too junior to interrupt, too uncertain to step forward. "Maybe try an online builder," the receptionist offered brightly. "They let you mix and match. It's fun. It's fun." Mila felt something shift in her chest, not anger. She'd burned through plenty of that in her racing days. on tracks where every second counted and every insult had to be left in the rear view. No, this was something deeper. That quiet ache of being unseen. Again. I'm not looking for fun, Mila said softly. I'm looking for something precise. For someone who matters. The manager gave a dry chuckle. Well, everyone matters. But to be frank, this facility builds prototypes for elite racing clients, defense contracts, and government fleets. We're not sentimental. Mila met his eyes. They were polished, professional, hollow. And you assume I'm here for sentiment? He smiled like a man who thought he was being generous. You just don't look like someone who builds F-Series engines, ma'am. A beat. Then two. Behind her, the automatic doors hissed open. Another client entered, tall in a tailored charcoal coat, wearing aviators indoors. The receptionist lit up like a storefront at Christmas. Mr. Reiner, of course. Let me get Marco for you. Mila stepped aside, unnoticed now, reduced to background. She didn't move for a long moment, just stood there, eyes resting on the desk, the prints, the key fob they'd pushed aside like it was scrap metal. The mechanic across the room took a hesitant step toward her. He looked no older than her son. His voice, when it came, was quiet. Your diagram, the hybrid vectoring design, no one's used that since the older Leon builds. Mila looked up. You recognize it? He nodded, eyes wide. I studied it in school. Before Mila could reply, the manager's voice cut in. Luca, back to diagnostics, now. The boy hesitated. I said now. And just like that, the moment ended. The room returned to what it had been, a showroom, a gatekeeping machine, where money talked, names ruled, and appearances decided who belonged. Mila picked up her sketches, slow and deliberate, folded them back into the folder, then reached for the key fob, turning it over once in her hand like a talisman. No one tried to stop her, not even to ask her name. As she turned to leave, the young mechanic, Luca, watched her go, guilt and curiosity battling behind his eyes. The receptionist was already laughing at something Mr. Reiner had said. And the manager? He had already forgotten her. Outside, the wind was softer. Mila stood beside the curb, folder tucked under one arm, and watched cars hum past on the boulevard. Silent, sleek, forgettable. She had won championships, designed the first dual-core vector chassis ever approved for elite European tracks, raised a son who could outthink half the engineers in that building. But none of that mattered, not when you wore sneakers and asked for something without showing a logo. Her fingers curled tighter around the key fob. This wasn't about a car anymore. It was about what people see and what they're blind to by choice. Mila didn't speak during the cab ride home. Boston passed by her window in soft, muted colors. Streets she'd once raced down in secret after midnight test runs, now lined with cafes, boutiques, and the occasional electric billboards shouting things she helped invent. She was a name in the industry. A legend, some still said. But today she'd walked into her own world like a stranger and been treated like a nuisance. The folder sat across her lap. Her fingers traced the corner without realizing. It had taken her months to finalize the design. Not because she doubted her skill, she never did, but because this was for her son. Not a car, but a memory. A machine that whispered, I see you. He didn't ask for it. He never would. That's what made him like her. When she finally reached the house, her dog greeted her at the door, tail wagging without a care. The soft click of his paws across the hardwood floor grounded her. She stood for a while, hand resting on the wall, breathing in the quiet. Then she walked to the garage. The tools were still lined the way she'd left them. Perfect symmetry, wrenches and clamps like instruments waiting for a conductor. The walls bore faded posters of her first title, her last race, her near-fatal crash in Monaco. She had survived that. This was different. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about what she was allowing. Later that evening at dinner, her son noticed her silence. Mom, he said gently, something happened at the shop? She hesitated, then nodded. They didn't recognize me. He gave a small shrug. Maybe that's a good thing. I wasn't hiding. I know. She looked at him, his eyes so much like hers but younger, steadier. He didn't carry her scars. Yet. I didn't mind being overlooked, she said. I minded being dismissed. He didn't say anything, just listened. They looked at me like I was lost, she continued, like I didn't belong in a place I built with my own two hands. There was steel in her voice now, quiet but unmistakable. Her son folded his napkin slowly. So, what are you going to do? She considered the question, then smiled, just a little, the kind of smile that made engines start without a key. The next morning, the garage buzzed as usual, white coats, soft jazz through the speakers, tablet taps, distant welds. Then the doors parted. The car that rolled in was unlike anything anyone there had seen before. Sleek, monolithic, a concept hypercar, graphite black with cobalt accents, low and silent as a predator. No emblem. No sound but a deep electric hum that made heads turn like a scent in the wind. It pulled to a stop at the center of the floor. Doors lifted. From the driver's side stepped a young man in a tailored black jacket and old sneakers. From the passenger side, Mila. No cap this time. Hair pulled back, eyes sharp. She walked like she belonged there. Because she did. A hush fell. The receptionist looked up, eyes wide. The manager appeared from the back and froze mid-step. Mila said nothing. She didn't need to. Her son opened the rear hatch and pulled out the same folder they had pushed aside the day before. He handed it to the manager, who took it with fingers that trembled, just a little. I believe you dismissed this yesterday, her son said calmly. The manager looked down, scanned the designs, and stopped cold at the signature. Monsieur Léon. Then slowly he looked up. Mila, I didn't know. You didn't ask, she replied. The words weren't loud, but they landed like thunder. A few feet away, Luca, the young mechanic, stood straighter, as if this moment somehow belonged to him too. Mila turned to him. Do you still want to learn from the old Leon builds? He nodded, stunned. Good, she said, because you're going to help me build this one. The manager opened his mouth to object, but her son stepped forward. This vehicle's funding has already been approved. Full build expedited. The design and patents belong to Leon Technologies. If your shop wants to be part of it, we need cooperation, not commentary. Silence. No one moved. Then quietly the receptionist gathered her papers and stepped back. She had nothing left to say. Mila walked forward, past the desk that had once dismissed her, past the walls that forgot her. Her voice was calm even. We'll need a private bay, and I'd like Luca on primary support. The manager nodded. Yes, ma'am. Mila paused. Don't call me ma'am. He blinked. Call me Mila. It was just after noon when the build bay went silent. The shop floor had never been this quiet, not even during system testing. Engines usually filled the air with controlled chaos, but now it was still. Engineers stood frozen at their stations. Luca held a torque wrench mid-turn. Even the music had been paused, though no one remembered doing it. Mila stood beside the car, her hands folded behind her back. Her posture was relaxed. Her presence was not. The manager cleared his throat. We've, cleared base 6 for the project, as requested. Mila gave a single nod, then turned to Luca. Walk me through your process, she said. He blinked. Now? Now! He swallowed, wiped his palms against his coveralls, and began pointing out the intake systems and the proposed housing for the hybrid unit. He stumbled once, caught himself, and pushed forward. She didn't interrupt, didn't correct, just listened, and that, more than anything, made him sweat. When he finished, she looked around the room. How many of you knew who I was? No one spoke. She turned toward the manager. You didn't, but that's not the problem. He shifted his weight. We never meant any disrespect. You came in unannounced without my title, my press kit, my curated version of power. She let the words settle. I came in like any mother would, asking questions, bringing a folder, and you decided what I could afford, what I could know. The receptionist firm, standing stiffly by the back wall, avoided her gaze. Mila took a step forward, not aggressive, just deliberate. I've spent the last 20 years fighting for inclusion in motorsports, funding programs for girls who love speed but have no place to learn it, designing systems for children with disabilities to drive for the first time. Her voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. And the moment I walked in here in sneakers and a denim shirt, all of that disappeared because I didn't look the part. No one breathed. Her son stepped forward now, folder in hand. This project was never about money, he said. It's about legacy, my mother's, and what she chooses to pass down. He handed the folder back to Mila. She took it but didn't open it. I'm not here for an apology, she said. I'm here to make something extraordinary. But I can't do that in a room full of people who still think status is worn on a wrist or stitched into a blazer. She turned back to Luca, which is why he's lead tech on this build. Effective immediately. Luca's mouth fell open. Me? You saw the design, not just the name. That matters. Then finally she looked at the manager. You can keep your title, she said, but if you want to keep this shop relevant, you'll start teaching your staff how to see. He didn't argue. He couldn't. Not after the room had already shifted. Mila turned toward Bay 6. Her son followed. Luca trailed behind, still stunned, still trying to understand how his life had just changed. And the rest? They just watched. Watched as the woman who once ruled the racetrack took the floor not with fire, but with focus. Not to embarrass, but to rebuild. Because the truth was now out in the open. And once seen, it could not be unseen. Weeks passed. The custom build was nearly complete. Bay 6 had become a second home for Mila and Luca, two people from different generations, now united by something faster than speed. Trust. Mila didn't take over the floor. She didn't bark orders or remind anyone who she was. Instead, she showed up every morning in the same boots, rolled her sleeves, and worked beside them, adjusting specs, testing materials, mentoring without preaching. And slowly something shifted in the room. The others, engineers, interns, even the receptionist, began to lean in, not out. They watched how she held silence the way others held power, how she listened before she spoke, how she noticed what others missed. It wasn't just the car that was being built. It was culture. One afternoon, the manager approached her. This time, no blazer, no rehearsed charm, just him. I reviewed Luca's module notes, he said quietly. He's sharp. I was wrong about him. Mila nodded. You were also wrong about me. I know, he said, and for once, he really meant it. She didn't smile, not out of pride, but grace. Then let's do something about it. They sat down that day and sketched out a new training initiative, the Open Pit program, a pipeline to bring in young mechanics from underrepresented backgrounds. No resumes, no pedigree, just passion and potential. Luca would help lead it, and Mela would fund it, not for headlines, but for the next girl who loved torque specs more than nail polish, the next kid who tinkered alone in a garage, dreaming without permission. Final scene. The car was unveiled quietly. No media, no investors, just a small track test, with Mila's son sliding into the cockpit for his first real lap. Mila stood at the edge of the pit wall, hands clasped, watching with the stillness of someone who'd done this dance many times, but never like this. The car sliced through the curve like a thought come to life. When he pulled back in, helmet off, face flushed, he looked up at her. She didn't say much, just touched the fender. You were always meant to fly, she said. He grinned. Must run in the family. Sometimes the stories that change us most don't come with explosions or headlines. They arrive quietly, on two tired feet, in worn shoes, with eyes that have seen the world but still look for kindness. Mila's story is one of those emotional stories that stays with you, not because it ends in revenge, but because it ends in something far more powerful, transformation. She didn't return to that garage to prove a point. She returned to build something, with her hands, her wisdom, and her quiet belief that people can change. And they did. One mechanic, one moment, one conversation at a time. These kinds of touching stories remind us that strength doesn't always look like power suits or loud voices. Sometimes it looks like someone choosing dignity over ego, grace over rage. It looks like a woman returning to the place that forgot her name and choosing to leave behind not bitterness, but opportunity. In a world that moves fast, where judgment is made in seconds and value is too often assigned by appearance, we need these reminders. We need stories that slow us down, that make us see each other again. Because what happened in that garage isn't just Mila's story, it's ours. How many times have we looked at someone and assumed they weren't important? How many opportunities to learn, to listen, to lead with compassion have we missed? Just because someone didn't fit the picture we had in our heads? That's why we tell these kinds of narrated stories, because they hold mirrors up to our lives. They ask better questions than they answer. They challenge what we think we know about value, respect, and humility. At Unraveled Fates, we believe in more than just incredible stories. We believe in the power of perspective. We believe that when you truly see someone, without filter, without judgment, you don't just change their day, you change the ending. So if this story moved you, if you found yourself feeling quietly proud or quietly challenged, if it reminded you of someone you once underestimated or someone who once underestimated you, don't let it end here. Share it. Tell someone. Start a conversation. Because stories like these aren't meant to sit in silence. They're meant to ripple, to open hearts, to unravel old ways of thinking and thread new ones. This is what Unraveled Fates is all about. Not just watching stories unfold, but letting them unfold something in you. In a world increasingly obsessed with titles, appearances, and instant validation, Mila Leon's story reminds us of an old but powerful truth. Dignity is not something you wear. It's something you live. This emotional story speaks to anyone who has ever been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed based on how they looked instead of what they knew. Especially for older adults, it strikes a familiar chord. How often we are judged not for what we've done, but for what we no longer seem to be. Mila didn't raise her voice. She didn't seek revenge. She returned to the garage she once built, not to reclaim status, but to reclaim meaning. Her journey is a touching story of quiet resolve, the kind of transformation that doesn't come from confrontation, but from consistency, character, and grace. We learn that legacy is not about recognition. It's about what you choose to pass on. Through her actions, Mila didn't just change one shop. She opened a door for the next generation. She showed that real leadership listens first, teaches without ego, and stands strong without shouting. For older Americans who've lived through decades of change, Mila's story is a gentle call to remember our worth and to help others see theirs. Age is not a barrier to relevance, it's a bridge to deeper wisdom. And when we act with calm confidence and kindness, even in the face of disrespect, we don't just set the record straight, we shape the future. This is the kind of incredible story that stays with you, because it's not just about Mila, it's about all of us who still believe respect is earned not by power, but by presence.